Hi, today we're talking about resolving insomnia, and I'm Rachel McLeod. I'm a mental health therapist and an emotional wellness coach, and I specialize in helping people do the brain work for resolving symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. And so that's where I'm coming from. I'm like the mechanic in the shop. I'm not the researchers and all the things. So I'm just going to tell you what it looks like under the hood and how to get the wires wiring. Um, but I do want you to understand that the brain has a very beautiful process for resolving symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress, including insomnia. And that process can get blocked or stopped, and then it reinforces on its own that it's blocked and stopped. We really want to get that resolved because that's also the process for resolving the symptoms and also building the health and wellness. What is going on with insomnia, we want to get that resolved because all that material in there that's blocked and not moving through the brain's natural healing process is also the raw material for your next levels of growth and wellness in so many areas. And I don't know where it will show up exactly. I just know you might start seeing it in your relationships. You might see the upgrades in your ability to set and reach your goals. You might see the wellness show up in your health. With insomnia, you will definitely see when that resolves. You will see that show up in your health, and some in my eye, and but in other ways as well, your parenting, how you show up at work, your interpersonal skills. There's a ton of things that resolve and that grow and expand your skill sets, your ways of being, when the brain can resolve issues like insomnia and like anxiety symptoms and depression symptoms and traumatic stress. So it's really important that we're doing that because this is the brain's process for helping us to adapt to our life, to thrive. And we want to spend more time in that part of our brain functioning, that part of our process, than in survival mode. And it really is one or the other. They don't run together. And so the thriving part of our brain is the part that knows how to thrive. And then you've got the others, is survival part of the brain. It knows how to survive. It's not creative. It's not skillful. It's skillful at surviving. But we want more than surviving. It's time to do more than survive. And so if you've been dealing with insomnia, you know that you're doing tons of things just to make it through and to try and get sleep. And this thing can just be turned into a big monster. So let's talk about resolving it. And this is really an important one. When clients come to me and they're having insomnia, we need to get this up and running. So this is really where we will start resolving symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. And I want to talk about three areas there, perspectives for you to look at, because I want you to see it from the brain's perspective and what's going on, because then you'll be able to support your brain to complete what it's trying to do and why it's stuck in the first place. And so that's how we resolve this at the root. Okay. Um, so I wanted to say one more thing before we got going. Uh, I'm guessing I'm just going to dive in because it left my mind. Okay. Um, I'm going to try and reach for it. Insomnia. Oh, yes. Insomnia can be very simple, and it also can be um, really complex. And so sometimes we're trying to resolve one of these three things, and the mind body system will take us somewhere else. We'll have to work on that. And then we're coming back in, and this is less tangled up. And then we got to work on this part of the tangle, and it might take us over here or over here. And so we're going over there to do that untangle. We come back and we're untangling it. So the more complex this is, the longer it takes, but we should be seeing healing and progress every step of the way. And so, because that's how brains work, is that there's a constant evolution, constant reorganizing, and we're going to feel that, and we're going to see that in our body. We're going to see that in our thoughts. We're going to see it somewhere. And so I want you to, as you're working through your insomnia, for you to take notice of the shifts that are showing up. And the brain is on a natural feedback loop. So it's going to make adjustments, and then you're going to go to bed. And then you're going to wake up the next morning if you get to sleep, and it's going to assess, how did that work? And then we're going to be processing that. And then it's going to make a new adjustment. The next day, you're going to notice something different. and you're going to notice progress back, forth, back sometimes. In my case, this was the first anxiety symptom I ever addressed in myself, and I didn't even realize I had insomnia. I had just had my third child in 2 years and 9 months, so I was just spinning out, and not and failing to thrive mentally and emotionally. And so I was asking this healer that I was working with for one of my son's issues, if she had anything that would help me. And so she handed me the training DVD set for my very first intervention that worked with this part of the brain, the kind of brain work I am a proponent of now. And she said, try this, it'll change your life. Surely it did. But I went home, I opened the training DVD set, I watched some videos, and then I just was like laying in bed that night with all these racing thoughts. And I was like, let me see if this will work for that. So I figured out how to do it. I did it the first round. I yawned. I did it the second round. I fell asleep. Didn't think about it again. Woke up the next. I mean, I didn't choose to fall asleep. I just fell asleep. I shifted out of survival mode into that regulated rest and digest. I rested. I woke up the next morning and I had slept well. And I was like, what else can I use this intervention for? And so that intervention at the time was emotional freedom techniques. I now am trained in a ton of them because each brain responds to things differently and wants different kinds of support. So while at the time I thought emotional freedom techniques was like the end all be all, which it's pretty awesome. If I only had one tool, I think that might be the one I would use. But I would hate that would to be a knife. I don't want that. I want all the tools. So because they're also amazing. But anyway, that insomnia that I worked on never came back. And so it was one and done. And so this could be very simple for you. And it could be complex. I've had lots of clients where this is what we're working on, and we resolve a big chunk of their disorder just to get the sleeping process up and running again. And so it was very complex. And so that could be the thing, and anywhere in between. You might notice that you just use an intervention a couple of times because we're just supporting that survival system part of the brain. We're saying it's safe, and we're just providing that support, and you'll watch it shift. That's why I have people practice this a lot. Can you tell the difference between the shift? Can you feel the shift? Can you see the results of the shift? That's stuff we're looking for. Okay, that's how we're going to address this. But that's the easy part. Using an intervention is the easiest thing you can do. And I recommend everybody do it. There are no known side effects when you get the right intervention, and many interventions don't have any side effects. So but it helps the brain shift out of survival mode into rest and digest by providing the brain the exact support it needs to the right part of the brain to unblock the healing process. Okay, that's easy. What's difficult is to find the root issue. When you find a root issue of a challenge you're working on and you get that resolved, the entire thing resolves. Sometimes you can't find the root, and so you just look at all the leaves on the little tree, right? Or the plant. And you're doing that until you can get access to the stalk, maybe. And then the stalk, if you follow that in, you're going to find the roots. Okay, now that's a specific skill set. I teach that skill set. That's part of my skill set. But when you resolve it, so it's sometimes you got to be out here in the leaves to be able to figure it out, to follow your way down. But sometimes you can just jump into the roots, and there's tons of skills for that. That's one of my specialties, and just finding that root. And I also teach people how to do that. So anybody can do this. But okay, let's talk. I think I've set it up. Let's talk framework for these three things. So one of the first challenges to resolve and support brains with for insomnia could be that your mind is just not turning off at night. That's what people say. right? My mind's not shutting off at night. It's not turning off. And what's going on there is a lot of times there's racing thoughts. There's a review of the day, or a review of the brain's going through the review process of conversations in the past, themes, right? Conversations, failures, mistakes. The brain is, you're starting to review that stuff. The truth is, right when you're going to bed is the perfect time for brains to kick up and start working. Now, if that process, it's going to happen. That's just what brains do. If your brain is really good at that, and you don't really have a backlog and there's not a lot of pain you're processing, then that happens in the background, way in the back. You don't even notice it. And your brain is at work for you all night long. And it's reorganizing, it's rewiring, it's doing all the reviewing process. There's tons of things that your brain is doing. If it has a problem, it's going to tell you about it. And so you're going to notice all the racing thoughts. You're going to notice nightmares. You're going to notice problems, and it's going to be in your face and in your body. And that's how it works. So this is a work time for the brain, and not just that. Brains are constantly trying to resolve your issues and overcome things and grow in the past. Right. So, and that have happened so that it can update you and move forward more informed, more skillful, more knowledgeable, more wise. Um, so, um, if that's going smoothly, you will not hear about it. If your brain is not doing this well, you're going to hear all about it, and you're not going to hear anything else but this. And that's the brain asking for support. And so with this process, and so a lot of that support is really that survival system support, and shifting out of survival mode into thrive. And so people used to do this, hugging, rocking, sucking their thumb as babies, right? Being tribal, doing all the things, and that's actually helps the brain do its processing work. Touching each other, embracing, hugging, all that stuff talks to that specific part of the brain. Now that we're not doing as much of that, we can use certain artificial support by tapping. We can rock. We can do some EMDR. We can hold points on our body. We can do lots of things, but we are not trying to stop your brain from stop it, like turn off, stop. That's not a thing. We're not trying to do that. We're actually trying to support it to finish the work it needs to do, so that it can go back in the background and do the work like it's supposed to be doing, without involving you, without malfunctioning all in your face and your body, causing all these things. Okay, that's a different way of looking at this. That's a different way of supporting the brain. We are partnering. This will happen. This is a normal thing after a traumatic event. The brain is like, what? And its trauma is painful. So it's wrestling with all this pain and these experiences. And so it's got to get all that stuff processed and organized, and help inform you how to move forward more adaptable and flexible, considering what just happened. And sometimes we'll notice that we have a couple of days of that insomnia after a traumatic event. That's actually normal and okay, but we want to support it. We want to help the brain. I know this is hard. Let me provide you with the support you need. And then we can do that for ourselves. That helps the brain move more at its speed, which is it's electrical, right? So it's a lightning fast speed, if it's processing well. But pain is really challenging. It can block that process for a lifetime, right? So sometimes this going is a little slower, but it's faster if we're supporting it. And we want these things to complete. We don't want to stop them and impair the process. We're depriving ourselves of important upgrades in health and wellness. The brain makes health and wellness from both the negative and the positive. Okay, so if you've got racing thoughts at night, what I would encourage you to do is just provide support to your brain. And that might look through at like using one of your favorite interventions, or using one of my favorite interventions, learning one of them and trying that. But it is really about creating that shift. And all that material your brain's working on is your brain's responding to it in survival mode: fight, flight, freeze, faint, or fawn. We want it to survive with that stuff in thriving and processing and digesting all the material and the events that took place. And so a lot of times we don't just do it once, because it's like, we'll get it over there, and then it's just not enough, because the next thing triggers it and goes back to survival. That's a win Whatever you got processed is a win. That's one more thing on the other side, and that the brain will use for growth. But we want to keep holding it there, and we want to keep holding. The more time we can hold it in that open rest and digest state, the more is healing and processing. This type of thing is the least complex of all the issues. So if you've got racing thoughts right now, your mind won't shut down, you need tons of stimulation, this is a great time to just use an intervention and watch that stuff resolve. And it usually will just dissolve, and there you go. Okay, a more complex issue is it's not safe to relax and sleep. And this is not a cognitive thing. Cognitively, in your thoughts, in your logical mind, you can see it's safe, right? This is actually a subconscious program, a belief that we have that occurred likely because of trauma. It shifted our belief system. It compromised our feelings of safety from on a subconscious level, and also this could be in the body. This could be the body's belief that it's not safe to relax or rest. This is a bigger challenge. This has to do with events that have taken place. So it's really important to resolve the events that are contributing to this belief that it's not safe. And sometimes there's one belief, and sometimes, especially in complex PTSD, in childhood trauma and neglect, it can be a really long time. This also is something that war vets deal with because of what they were trained to do and what they were exposed to, what they experienced, that it's a prolonged period of time. So there might be multiple incidents in there. But other people with other challenges like sexual abuse traumas, domestic violence, some of these other more complex traumatic experiences, there's a longer range of what's not safe. However, regardless of that, if you can find the root issues, the root somatic body sensation, if you can find the root in the subconscious mind, the root belief, you can unravel this very, very quickly. Now, one of the challenges with more complex PTSD is people aren't emotionally stable enough yet to just go to the root, and we do need to build that stability, and that we need to get enough emotional wellness pumping to be able to do root work. But for the majority of people, that's not the case, and you can really dive in and find that root issue. And sometimes just using an affirmation like "it's safe to relax" will do it. That could be more I wouldn't recommend that for people with complex PTSD. You want to do more affirming of the not feeling safe in the body. And so you might say things like, it's not safe to sleep. It's absolutely not safe to sleep. And if you can imagine your subconscious mind, they're in there like, I know, right? Because this, and this. And you don't have to have a lot of skill to support them. But even just while they're chattering and informing your brain of all the reasons it's not safe, well, let's make sure the survival system that we're in thriving, processing, digesting, healing, learning mode as opposed to survival mode. And this brain will react to it's not safe talk from the subconscious mind or the body as if we are in danger. What now? Here we go. It doesn't understand time. It doesn't understand that it's not right now. It was like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 40 years ago. It doesn't get that. And so when it starts hearing that chatter, it's just like, go, fight, flight, freeze, faint, or fawn. It's not a logical reasoning part of the brain. But if we can hold it over there in rest and digest mode, what happens is all that chattering goes up and gets processed. And then once it goes through this process, it goes through parts of the brain it has never gone through before. Those events start going through there's a part of the brain that will put a date stamp on it. So it will be the first time the brain understands what day this happened, what timeline this is in. It'll be the first time your brain understands for itself that it's not happening right now. And then it's like, oh my gosh, it's not happening right now. And so it goes and rewires and does a bunch of stuff. And then it puts words to this. And there's so many stations in the brain it will go through that it has never gone through before. And then you're going to just notice your brain learning all these things about then and now. And you're going to see it creating health and wellness for you now. Not trying to create the health and wellness for you that would have worked in that traumatic experience, which is what's happening currently. Your brain is responding to that as if it's now. And so we want to walk your brain through its process of figuring out that stuff does not belong here. And it's safe now. It wasn't safe then. That's true. At that date and that time in that situation, that was not safe, right? And there's so much healing and growth that comes from this. And you'll watch yourself be more masterful in your life when your brain figures these things out. I think I need a whole video on that. I need to just go off about that topic right there. So, but um, what we've got is that it's not safe to relax. So, um, sometimes with people, they've had a pretty awesome life and they've had a lot of support and they still have insomnia. When there's not a lot of trauma or a lot of the trauma has been resolved and the insomnia is still there, um, we're looking for the root in like that needle in the haystack. So there are specific skills that can really pull that up for you and get that resolved. And so I teach those, and that's part of my specialty. And when people want a needle in the haystack, that's really when they hire me to help them with that. But I want to say something about this. Okay, the other piece, one of these things is that there are root causes in insomnia that have to do with biological pieces. There's not any amount of tapping or energy work or EMDR that is going to fix that. You need to go to the root issue of that. So if that means if it's a hormonal issue, that needs to be dealt with. If it's vitamin and mineral deficiency, that needs to be dealt with. If your circadian rhythms are off, I don't know, or melatonin, or your body's not producing, I don't know the things that are going on in that field of work. That's not my area of expertise, but I do want you to understand. And sometimes there are two roots. One is in the trauma, anxiety, depression land over here, and one is in the biological piece. This one is, for me, I think this is super easy to resolve. So let's do it. But I think that they would probably say the same thing, right? But we do want to do both roots. If we get one of the roots, we're going to see a lot of improvement, but we really need to resolve all the root issues in the case and support the mind-body system to resolve the issues at the root. The third thing I want to just mention here, it has to do with it's not safe. And sometimes people are avoiding sleeping because of nightmares. Nightmares are part of the brain's processing that gets blocked. And instead of turning into a healing thing, it turns into a terror, shame, horror, a traumatic experience. And your body is flooded with adrenaline as if it's happening now. Because brains don't understand the difference between vividly imagined and something actually happening. And so these nightmares are so disturbing to many people that they'd just rather not sleep. And so that's why we use some medications in this situation, so that we can make it so that they're not active to these they don't get access to these nightmares, but I want to resolve them. So I'm not poo-pooing anybody's medication choices. But what I am saying is that we actually need to help the brain resolve the issues that are creating the nightmares. Sometimes the nightmares are flashbacks. We need to go through the flashback resolution process and get those flashbacks resolved. That can happen fast. If there are 3, we can track 3 and resolve 3. Right? If there are 4, 10, right? Some of this is really complex. And so we will work with it wherever we find it. Um, uh, but I like to just resolve the nightmares, and then the avoidance of sleep stops. And so, because then the brain realizes, oh, it's safe. It's the same thing we do with bones. If we break a bone, once it starts healing again, the brain starts being like, oh, we don't have to be so protective. Oh, we don't have to. Oh, we can do more things. Oh, and the expansion starts again. The same thing happens with nightmares when we resolve the nightmares, which are your brain's effort to process the things that have happened in your life, and the emotional experiences, the actual experiences, the sensory information in the experiences. And we want that. We want to support that. That is a healing function that is not functioning well. We want to provide it the support to function well. And then the avoidance resolves as well. So that's it. That's all. And so I hope that you are inspired to really tackle your insomnia because you can. And really, I want to do to you like the woman did to me. Here, try this; it'll change your life. I want to invite you to try my three favorite interventions for this. I have a free program called Interventions for Inner World Transformation, where in under an hour I will teach you my three favorite ones. You can try them out. You can experiment with them. You can do trials. And I wonder, what about this symptom? Rachel, will this work? You can say my name over there. And so try it out and see. Let me know. Or just celebrate, or that didn't work so well there. Let me try it over here. And just go through and see what you notice. And so I invite you to do that. I've put the links in the description of this. And so you can just jump over there and try that now. I also have an 8-week process where I help people find and resolve the root causes to their symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. And in that, we help the brain resolve symptom after symptom after symptom and build health and wellness and get life up and running again, because those symptoms can really shut down and impair our way of being in important areas of our life. So we want to resolve all of that. Wonderful connecting with you and wishing you the best. Bye.